Also in the spotlight in Washington today, President Obama meeting with some top CEOs to talk about the threat of cyber attacks and the huge economic losses that come from computer hacking. The president said he's taking cybersecurity seriously, so seriously that he met with those business leaders in the Situation Room at the White House. Eamon Javers joins us from the White House with more. Eamon?
Hi, guys. Well, it was about a dozen CEOs here at the White House. The White House itself has been a little bit cagey about the list of CEOs who attended this meeting. We staked them out. We didn't see a whole lot of them on their way in or their way out, but we were told that Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan was here. Also, Rex Tillerson of ExxonMobil was expected to attend, and a long list of other top business CEOs from a range of industries. Clearly, this was a meeting that the president said was important for his agenda, and we talked with David Cote, the CEO of Honeywell. On his way out of the meeting, he explained that a lot of the CEOs were really behind what the president had to say today. Take a listen.
This is a scary area. And when I think about any single thing that I worry about the most when it comes to what could happen that I just don't know about, that kind of unknown threat that could just really cause pain, cybersecurity is it. So I'm fully supportive, and so is every CEO that was in that room.
Fully supportive, but what Cote also said in that interview was that he wants a light touch from government in terms of regulations and requirements on cybersecurity for companies. Now, that's something that we've heard from other CEOs as well. Clearly, there's a little bit of a point of tension here from the company's perspective over how much authority the White House and the U.S. government is going to have over cybersecurity issues.
You know, Eamon, we've been getting warnings about cyber attacks ever since 9/11, and yet we're still talking about it. We are still vulnerable. Why do you think that businesses and the government have been dragging their feet to fix this problem? Did you get any sense of that from talking to people today?
Well, there's two real reasons for that. I mean, the first one is that it's just very hard to tell who is actually doing these cyber attacks. I mean, tracing them back to their source can be infuriatingly complicated. And also, when you do trace it back to its source, often it's offshore in a remote location. And in some cases, it's a unit of the Chinese government that's actually sponsoring a lot of these attacks. That makes it very difficult in terms of geographic location, and also diplomatically with foreign governments and foreign intelligence services. It gets very, very complicated. And that's part of the reason why this is so difficult.
All right, Eamon, thanks a lot.
You bet.
Our next guest says cyber attacks are a war on American businesses and consumers. Paul Viollis is CEO of Risk Control Strategies, a New York security firm that advises companies on how to protect their businesses against cyber attacks. Mr. Viollis, welcome. Good to have you with us. I wonder whether cyber attacks are actually becoming much more frequent, or are we just hearing more about them?
Actually, it's certainly nothing new, Tyler. I mean, this is something that's been going on for many years right now. It's starting to come more and more into the press, but it's certainly not a new concern to us whatsoever.
But are there more of them? Are you detecting more of them? Are more of your clients saying we're getting hacked, or we're worried about getting hacked?
I can say, you know, without question, over the last several years, we've seen an exponential increase in attempted hacks as well as successful hacks into our corporate as well as our private clients. And the interesting part about it is the business model associated with this is so strong that it attracts the major organized crime groups, such as those out of the Eastern Bloc and those coming from various parts of China.
Paul, you heard our report and you heard the reaction from the CEO of Honeywell. How do we fix this problem? Is it going to come from the private sector? Is it going to come from government, or is it going to come from both working together?
Well, I think, you know, Susie, it's got to come from both. One, when you take a look at government, we have to look at our infrastructure and just where that is right now and what we have to do to make that stronger. There's no great secret that it's weak and it's vulnerable. So that's going to take a government commitment, and I commend the president by stepping up and doing the right thing and bringing, you know, a group of leaders in there to discuss that. But it can't stay there. It's got to start there. It's got to build from there. The government's going to have to do their part to protect our infrastructure, to protect what we have as a country. And corporate America is going to have to step up. They're going to have to invest in making sure that they begin to holistically identify their vulnerabilities and then develop a strategic plan to mitigate those vulnerabilities preemptively.
It's pretty easy to see how this is a major threat at the corporate level, particularly in critical infrastructure, water systems, power companies, and so forth. But around third base, and bring it home for me as a consumer, as an individual investor, as a person living in this country, what is the risk to me? How am I going to feel it?
All right, that's a great question. Think about it this way. When we look at the individual itself, you've got to take a look at who the perpetrators are and who's actually focusing on the potential target. So from the general consumer, the one thing that we need to recognize more than anything else is that we cannot simply just send our proprietary, our financial information over the internet without a decent level of protection. Hence, the recommendation there, the solution set there, what more people are moving towards is attaching a small encrypted box, firewall, to their existing router so that when they are communicating proprietary information, that's communicated safely and securely. When you take a look at the collateral effect to the consumer today for corporate America not doing what they should, on the small end, you're talking about losing your personal identifying information all the way up to your financial information. And let's put it this way. When something's gone and your identity of that information is stolen, it's stolen forever. It's not going to come back to you.
What about the cloud? A lot of people feel that if everything's backed up on the cloud and they've got password protection, that they're okay.
Right. If you speak to any real cybersecurity expert, they're going to tell you that the cloud is just another example of putting information in a place you can't completely control. The part that we really need to identify here is that whenever we have the human element that controls the gate to that data, whether it's the data center, the cloud, wherever it may be, we have to make sure the integrity of that individual is intact. So any information that goes into the cloud or anywhere else where you don't have complete and total control over who's accessing that information is subject to breach. And that's the part that I'm really, and have never been enamored with the cloud system.
That's kind of my feeling too, Paul. If it's out there, it's out there. That's sort of the way I've always felt about it. Paul Viollis, CEO of Risk Control Strategies, thank you very much for being with us.